You are now listening to Podcorn, episode 15, for July 10th, 2013.
Now, from the world of Montclair comes
Wait, that's an
the
intro,
song
not an outro.
of Montclair on ice. Ah. Skating through the world, writing a book. Cold rocket girl, hated her.
Yeah, still the same. Can't you feel the pain when the needle hits the vein? Ain't nothing like the real thing. I've seen it once before, and oh, it's something else. Good God, cool breeze come on in. Sunshine.
Hello, it's AmyReeder and Brandon Montclair and...
That's right, it's me, Rodney Ramos.
Yeah, Rodney Ramos came over to talk to us. He's another pro in the field. What do you do, Rodney?
What haven't I done?
Yeah, there you go. He's been in the biz almost 30 years or something? Or
Yeah, not that long. I mean, well, 30 years doing it since I was a kid, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would say 26 years now.
Cool. Yeah, so from a very young age.
That's right. I remember when people used to walk to things. It was so much fun.
We were just saying a minute ago, I worked with Rodney a bit, worked with him on some Batman stuff.
When Brandon means a minute ago, before we got cut off
By Shane Davis.
by Shane Davis
who
trying
you,
to call
who you
into
inked on Shane Davis's first Batman gig because we needed 3 inkers.
Yeah, I wish I would have held on to some of those pages.
I bought one of the pages off of you, but I made Greg Tumbarello go to your table and buy it. And Rodney now works for Greg Tumbarello at Legendary Pictures.
Yeah.
I said, Rodney, I want this page, because I liked Shane's stuff. It was one of the first books I worked on. I said, I want to get it from Rodney, but I don't want Rodney to have to give me a deal or anything because I'm working for him. So I said, just whatever it costs, Greg, buy the page and give it to me. And that's how it happened.
That's how the magic.
But
Nice.
an even more interesting conversation is Bang Tango.
Yeah, we kind of...
Well, yeah, that's when Brandon was editing up at DC. So, Bang Tango was a very controversial book.
Yeah, it was not a lot of sales, but
Not a lot of sales, but some interesting editing that went on due to its sexual content.
And Rodney having to do more than a regular inker job. Like I said, to talk
panels-
about the inking on that book would be interesting because...
Well, first of all, I mean, he had a very quirky style, so we had to bring it down to earth a little bit.
And a little more consistent.
A little bit more consistent.
But that wasn't the big problem. The big problem was they wanted to censor a lot of things after the fact in the art.
I mean, they were pretty graphic and sensitive, but
Yeah, I mean...
they did fit into the story, and they knew what they were getting into. They just didn't know exactly what.
If you're one of the few people who read Bang Tango by Joe Kelly and Adrian Seabar with Rodney doing the inks, Howard Chaykin did the covers. That's pretty cool.
They were really nice. As a matter of fact, I thanked Howard on Facebook about it when he friended me.
Yeah.
So I think I friended him.
Mhm.
Whatever. He was really nice about it, actually.
But it was it was very adult, and they approved it for being adult, but then when they started seeing the pages, it was like, wait a second, we've got to make some changes.
Yeah, this is a little too graphic for our audience. Really?
Yeah. There was something about a pool table and backshot not being a billiards term.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, we had to edit that to a conservative bending over the table.
Yeah,
Yeah, we learned a new term, back
Yeah,
shots.
I had a very uncomfortable converstion with Karen Berger, the editor-in-chief,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh, we don't do back shots at Vertigo," and I didn't quite know what she was talking about because there was a doggy style scene,
It's the doggy style scene. Yeah.
and there's a concern that it was anal and that you couldn't portray that at Vertigo.
Right.
But it was funny, so what we had to literally do is change the art, and at the last second, to flip her on her back.
Right.
But here's the irony.
Shot still looked like she was getting it.
Well, the irony is, and we'll ruin it for anyone who hasn't read the first issue of Bang Tango, is that you do hide everything as was going on because you find out that the lead character isn't a real woman; she's a transsexual,
Right.
isn't a
Not
biological
that
woman.
would spoil anything since it's been a while now.
But the point is, even if you flipped, it was pre-op as one would say, and even though you flipped her on her back on the pool table, it was still a back shot in the sense of what we're not allowed to do at Vertigo because of the anatomy involved.
Yeah, I don't think they get that though.
No.
I don't think they got the fact that it didn't change anything.
Oh,
it still looked
yeah, I
exactly
get
what
it.
it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Which is kind of comical in itself. What are you gonna do?
But we had to do that, and we had to, you know, I don't think you did that in the office, but I remember we were cutting up a spread in the office.
I did all the corrections at home. I had to repencil them and then, basically put them in.
But a lot of penciling experience too.
Oh yeah.
Early stuff at Marvel,
When I started
Valiant.
my career at Marvel, I was penciling. I mean, I penciled Thundercats, What Ifs, Conan, covers for different books.
And penciled some at Valiant. Phase
Marvel
1.
Comics Presents. At Valiant, I penciled Legend of Zelda.
Nice.
For a while, and various other covers or whatever. Just none of the books that came out that weren't like Soul or anything. I never did any of the stuff for that. But the early incarnation of Valiant at the time was all the Nintendo characters.
Right.
I did a lot of Legend of Zelda.
That's cool. That must have been at the time when I was watching all the Mario Brothers TV show. Maybe?
Yes, most likely.
Yeah, I loved
When you're
that
a
TV
wee baby
show.
in a
And
wee
then every
lounge.
Friday they had a Legend of Zelda story. It was the best.
Were you allowed to watch Legend of Zelda? It wasn't too demonic.
Whatever,
Legend of
yes.
Zelda demonic, really?
Brandon's just pulling my chain, as they say. As
Is
the
that
young,
what they say?
as the young kids say.
But a lot
Sounds
of,
like a Bang Tango conversation.
but a lot of inking since.
Yeah.
Oof. My God. I
Biggest-
remember first of all, Marvel, I jumped around. I did full issues on like Gen X, Gambit, Iron Man. I pretty much worked on quite a few books up there, just jumping around on stuff.
Your biggest, most memorable run at DC.
Was Transmetropolitan.
Yeah, Transmetropolitan.
56 issues straight.
Yeah,
Nice.
from issue, I guess that would be from issue 4 to 56, or
Yeah,
4 to
something
60
like
or whatever it is.
5 to 60. 5 to 60.
Cool.
And while I was doing that, I was doing the other Green Lantern series before this one that was out, and I was on from issue 137 to 181. When were a few fill-ins in there by some other people, but that was from 137.
Yeah.
You could say a good 40 issues in there. Or something.
That was the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern stuff.
Yeah, it changed. It went from Eaglesham to Luke Ross to Eaglesham to Jim Fern to Luke Ross. I think Luke Ross finished off the run on it, most likely. If I had my say, I would have probably inked the fill-ins too, because I'm never crazy about anybody filling in a book that's supposed to be my regular gig. But
Yeah.
Why is that?
well, because
Proprietary, or you just like that?
I just feel that when it's my book, I'm on the series, I want to do everything. I want to be able to make sure I'm like a completist. I need to have it complete.
Yeah.
So if a book has 3 different artists or more on it, do you try to bring a consistent ink to all of them because it's a regular ongoing series? Do you adjust for it?
When
a
it
little
has
bit
3
of
or
both?
4 different artists, there's no way to have consistent look because it's 3 different art styles. Now, if it's one artist and 3 different inkers, or let's say 2 inkers, if there's a specific style that was done well over the artist, I try to make a concerted effort to emulate that style. I'm very adaptable in terms of my inking style. So I worked with the style that was working for the artist with the inker that was working. I would look at the style and just mimic it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people wouldn't even know they wouldn't even know what pages I actually worked on sometimes. People, it's not good. When you want people to know that you had worked on a book, and I said, well, I want people to have an enjoyable read without having a sudden shocking change in style in the book, which kind of jar the reader out of, the art style of the book. I mean, I had a discussion with another inker about it. He felt like, well, I'm going to do my style, and that's I want people to know I'm there. I said, yeah, that's great that you know that you want people to know you're there, but my concern was that when people were reading a book, it would be like if you were watching a film, and suddenly it was directed by Spike Lee, and then suddenly Jerry Bruckheimer came in the middle of it and completely changed the look of it. I mean, it changes the feel of the movie all of a sudden. It's the same way when you watch compilation films. You're going to like one part, you're not going to like the other part. So I usually try to keep that flow, that sense of not taking the reader out of the continuity of the style. Because they're reading this story, and I don't want them to go, oh, boy, the artwork's changed here. It's so awkward, it's so different. Kind of took me out of the story for a bit.
So right, you want exactly. The story comes first, I suppose, is a cliche way to put it. But you don't want to be noticed to the detriment of people stopping in the store.
Yeah, I wanted people to feel comfortable that when they read book the cover to cover, that they didn't feel like something changed in the middle of the book. It just kind of takes you out of the story. So I would always adopt to whoever I felt was the main inker lead on the book, because there always is a scenario where somebody inks more pages than the other. So you generally try to stick to that style.
Right. And when you're the main guy, is there a Rodney Ramos style, or does it change again depending on the penciler? Obviously, it changes on the penciler.
I'm very adoptable. There's no way you can look at one or the other. There's some books where you can say that was me or whatever, depending on what the deadline was. But generally, I would work toward what the penciler was trying to get at. Because every penciler always has an idea how they want to be inked. Generally, I like to have that conversation with them. Say, where's your head here? I want to know what your head. Sometimes the pencils immediately dictate exactly where they are. They're very tight. Mm-hmm. They clearly state how exactly you want to be inked. Sometimes it's just a matter of, bringing something to the line work to make it pop a little bit more, or give it a lot more energy. But other than that, you don't change. And then there are guys that are very loose. When I worked over Rich Burchett on Green Lantern, he had many different inkers over him, but I felt like I wanted to really do something different with it. If something came out of the way I was inking over him that I really liked, and it turned out he liked it too. So it was a nice combination.
Yeah. Now, people probably don't know also that in addition to all this stuff, it's like a lot of times you kind of finish people's art, right? Because it's like.
You mean doing over breakdowns or?
Yeah, or right? Am I right? It seems it's like
too.
You kind of unlike a lot of inkers, like sometimes people call you in because you can kind of fix things. You know what I mean? If there's a problem and stuff like that.
Well, the interesting thing about that is some people would be happy about it, but sometimes
the editors are happy, but not necessarily the pencilers.
But it all comes down to deadline. These things, this thing. The little evil deadline demon comes out, and that is what ends up dictating how a book's going to turn out. Sometimes a book needs to get done, and I make sure I do to the best of my ability with the time we have, and I make it look as best as I can with the time I have. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I like the challenge. Mm-hmm. I want it to look good and really surprise people. They go, wow, that was done well in the time that you had.
But maybe the readers or fans don't know that, hey, you had to do it.
They're never going to know the truth about how late some books are. I mean, books could come in. I've known to ink books the week before.
Yeah, what's the craziest deadline on inks?
Ink it on a Thursday, printed by Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The next week.
Yeah.
For the whole issue, right? Or
no,
are you
I mean,
done by
sometimes
Thursday?
it would be like, there'll be like, there's 5 or 6 pages at the very end that just need to be done. They need to be inked, and they need to be handled well, and look good, and just get them out. And there's a challenge to that. There are very few people that can do it. I know Scott Hanna could do. Scott Hanna's a machine. A few other people do it too. There are a few other guys that just will refuse to do that. Mm-hmm.
You hear stories of books being inked overnight back in the day.
Well, back in the day, my God, I've heard stories of Vinnie Coletta.
Vince Scaletta would erase stuff to make it so it would be easier to ink.
Yeah, he would have a crew of assistants,
But famously on Kirby's Thor stuff, Kirby would draw a whole bunch of backgrounds, and Coletta would erase some of them so he could ink it faster.
Wow.
Yeah, to get the book done. But I mean, you gotta understand. Kirby was laying out. There were times at one point at Marvel, Jack Kirby was laying out 10 books a month. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what
crazy.
Your mental ability has to be? That focus to be able to sit, look at a script, break it down.
Yeah.
'Cause it wasn't a
as
full
well
script.
as he did, as exciting as Kirby did, and do that with 10 other books. Look at 9 other scripts in that same month, and somehow, by some miracle, that create these really good breakdowns for somebody to just come in and just finish inking them.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why you've seen so many books with so many different inkers over Kirby, because he was Machine Man. The guy was a machine. When he was on, and he could produce on a level that I don't think anybody could understand. I mean, That's why he's the king.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet him ever? In all your
Briefly
long years?
Once at a show, I think I saw him. You know, I really should have made an effort to more. You know, but you know, you see Kirby at the time, and there was always somebody who wanted to talk to him. So
Yeah.
it was maybe never had that opportunity to have it done professionally. Like if he came out to the office or anything. By then he was gone.
Yeah.
Long gone. You know, but you always hear great stories about him. He was always generous with his time.
That's cool. Who do you think was like your favorite? Like, who are some favorite people that you've like met? You know what I mean? And in the biz, like, who's really cool?
Well, quite a few people are actually pretty damn cool.
Who are the characters that stand out? You worked for John Romita.
John was great. John, you know, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and
Well, it was early in your career. What was the gig?
Well, the gig was Marvel at the time had assistant program, an art assistant program, where you came in and you worked under John Romita. John Romita was your boss. Mm-hmm. I mean, that alone was like left you starry-eyed because John, you know, John's a legend. So it's like you would come in and your boss is Johnny, and you go in the office, and back then all the art corrections were done through the art department through John.
The bullpen was the
well. There was only
what they
there
told
was
the
there
fans.
was there was this, the Romita Raiders handled at that time for the period that John was in charge of art directing the corrections on anything.
Right.
So if there were corrections on like a cover for a foot or whatever, maybe sometimes panels. They would go in through John, and then John would call us into the office and say, "All right, we need this fixed. We need this here. I want you to draw this out. I want you to ink it." And then we'd go through the corrections for the day, and then we would return those pieces to the editors, whichever editors they were, at the end of the day, or sometimes things needed to be turned around more quickly. You know, I mean, it was a great time. I mean, you're sitting there, you're working at Marvel. Everybody would come traipsing through the office. Tankovitz would come in. You know, Walt Simonson would come in. A whole bunch of guys would come in. And they're all great. Everybody was always nice. You know, it was a different time then.
And you were 18 working for...
Right, 18, 19, in there, yeah.
Crazy.
For about a a little over a year as a Romita Raider, and then I started getting work. I started getting penciling work.
Well, which was the point, right? You kind
Yeah,
of
the whole point was...
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Kevin McGuire was part of it before I came, and he wasn't even there 3 months before that he got work.
Oh, yeah.
He was that good. 3 months later, he was out. He was out working regularly.
Oh, okay.
And there were a few other people that went through there too. Chris Ivey, Don Hudson. There's a few other guys. I can't remember off the top of my head. James Fry might have been in there too for a little bit. But the whole idea was to get you. You know, you had to do your samples. You kept doing the samples. You got to meet the editors. You got to meet the artists. You understood what a professional page looked like. You had to work on all your things, your storytelling, everything.
Yeah.
And you had John's ear.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
So if you wanted to show him anything, he helped you look over here. You need to work on this. You look over your stuff, work on this. You know, it was a great time.
Well, you get a professional job a couple years out of high school. Because I do a lot of portfolio reviews now, it's like inkers all the time. It's so hard because ink, you know, because a lot of people doing digital inks or a lot of people want hand. So it's like there's less inking jobs than anything else now. It seems
because it's
how
not.
do you break in?
It's a global market now. It's 10 times more difficult. It's become what Hollywood is now.
Well, I mean, especially for inkers, a lot of people ink their own stuff. Like said, you have digital
and
ink.
there's no need because for a long time, comic book artists weren't looked upon well, and you know, except for the people who cared, obviously the fans. But generally, you know, outside in the real world, people just look at you with cross-eyed, roll their heads or something. But over the last 15 years, that case has changed, and a lot of people could see it as a profession. Not only that, but the birth of the graphic novel here, which is old school in Europe, because they've been doing it for years and years and years. That changed the landscape too, because suddenly people were doing more than just superhero stories. They were doing stories about everyday lives, or alternate stories, or fantasy stories, or old gangster stories. So a lot of these people that did graphic novels penciled and inked their own work. So the rise of the people who were doing illustration, taking illustration in college, would say, hey, you know, I'm going to do comic books. So they already ink themselves. They were
Mm-hmm.
complete artists. They were taught to be a complete artist. That wasn't the case in comics because most people
production, right?
Yeah, most people, that came into comics and understood how the process of it, that it's penciling, inking, lettering, and so on and so on and so on. Always would focus on one thing and forget the other thing.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, where more illustrator type artists are coming into the business, the inking things become less and less and less, where an editor will be more willing to hire somebody who can do everything
Yeah.
than hire somebody who could just pencil. The pencils would have to be incredible. It could be like on a David Finch or Brian Hitch level, where they would go, all right, this stuff is so good, we'll get an inker for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll get somebody, or they'll recommend somebody.
Yeah. It's all changing. I really wish that I could have experienced more of a community in comics. You know what I mean? Even now that I moved to New York, I still feel kind of
Amy's
isolated.
Right. Amy's the exact opposite.
we're
learning at home,
Yeah.
looking on the computer.
Yeah.
But it's not like you've done too bad either. I mean,
Yeah, it's worked out.
you have developed your own style. You have a very good style, and it's and it works. And you produce, as long as you produce your work, your project, and you're consistent about it. More and more people see what you're doing, and more people will like what you're doing, and your fan base will just grow. People will just be impressed. But so you even without the community, which is even harder, you've been able to been successful at what you're doing, which is pretty damn amazing.
Well, thank you.
So Amy, I mean, obviously you still have to ink. You don't approach it. Now you're doing your own stuff. You worked with some inker. You started doing your own stuff. Obviously, at Tokyo Pop, on Fool's Gold, even the first couple of issues of Madame Xanadu.
Yeah.
Then had to work with an inker.
Yes.
Now you don't work with an inker anymore. You ink your own stuff, also color your own stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly a process where you do full pencils and full inks. It's something of a hybrid.
Yeah,
But
kinda.
what is the mindset for yourself to approach inks? I mean, is it just all I'm doing a page and this is just a part of it involves a brush or a pen, or is it
Yeah, it's just kind of like
or
the
do you have to
final
compartmentalize it?
step. I don't really compartmentalize it that way so much anymore. I mean, it's a little bit separate, obviously, because at one point you're picking up a pencil, and at another point you're picking up a micron. In my case, because I use the little kids' tools. But yeah, for me it's just I piece it more like foreground to background. Everything's in its little groups. So.
If even that, yeah. I mean, I've seen you and you kind of jump all over the panels sometimes too.
It's
Finishing
usually
up,
yeah. It's usually foreground to background though, in a way, just because otherwise I just can't wrap my head around it. It's there's just too much information going on. I don't know, but with the inking technique, it's I don't know. For me, it feels like a mind game a lot of times. I don't know how you feel, Rodney, but I'm learning now how to have a steady hand, and I find that if I trust that I can do a smooth line, then I can. But if I'm at all nervous about it, it will not happen. So it's this weird Jedi trick I have to do to ink.
Yeah, but you make that mistake, you go into Photoshop and you can correct it in 2 seconds. So.
Maybe if I had that attitude, I'd be able to ink straight.
But it's all about doing any kind of art. It's all about confidence anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sit with confidence when you're sitting down to do your work, the minute you allow doubt to creep into how your process is, where you question your ability or you question how you're going about doing a page, what ends up happening is you make things 10 times more difficult for you.
Yeah.
For yourself. So you really have to, when you sit down and you do something, that's why it's important to have that laser beam focus on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is, as an artist, when you're sitting down and you're creating a page, is you're basically creating this world, and you're the everything from a movie. You're a director, you're a cinematographer, you're a writer. You're the person that's pacing this story along. You got a script to work from, but at the same time you have to create that visual effects, that story. You have to create that world. Mm-hmm. You have to be constantly thinking about how the movement is going in the scene.
Yeah.
So if you're starting from one top of the panel and you awkwardly switch the side without it making sense, you're jarring the viewer out of the scene. They'll start questioning, well, how did we get here from here? You don't want to do that. You want to the really good guys know how to move that storytelling consistently. throughout each page, where gradually you don't have awkward moments coming into how you're laying out pages from page to page. That's why it's very important to know sometimes where pages are landing in the book.
Yeah.
You know, because if you want to surprise somebody, you know, you have the surprise on the page opposite and it's right there, it kind of spoils it. But if that surprise is on a page when you turn the page, it's even better.
Which was even hard to always plan at DC because you have advertisements to
Right, but
factor
Yeah.
in.
the thing is, I always
Yeah.
figured that they knew what pages those advertisements were on.
You can have them move it sometimes, but sometimes it was funny because were certain rules where like, well, this bubblegum company wants to be in the first 7 pages, but we can't put one in the first 5 pages, so it has to be. You know, they would have strange
Like
rules.
weird
Sometimes.
requirements.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but
it
if
really
they-
didn't make any sense. You can't bump one page, you would say. But
if they said to you as a writer,
yeah,
here's this 20-page story, and
here's where all the ads are.
these
It
are
would be
where
nice,
all the
yeah.
ads are going to be.
Yeah, they don't, but yeah.
It's too bad that they don't.
No, I
Because
agree.
If they
Yeah.
did, let's say in the script you know they sent you the layout for the book, and they say, all right, here's a 20-page breakdown, and these are where the ads are going to be.
Yeah.
So that way, if you wanted to pace it so that a surprise comes after an ad,
Yeah.
that would
No,
be
you
great.
could. Yeah, exactly.
But you know, there have been many books spoiled by having a surprise come up on the opposite page right there in front of you, and you're kind of like, well, I kind of took it out of it a bit. You know,
No,
took
absolutely.
the wind out of the story a bit. You know, but when you're doing your creator own thing, you control that more.
Yeah. But now I miss the ads, and so
Well, I mean, you know, once
There were
the
some
book,
cool ads
once
when
the
I
book
was-
comes,
Yeah.
you know,
when
once
I,
the book,
when I was a kid reading books that Rodney Ramos was fixing the feet on under John
What?
Romita.
I was fixing the feed.
Well, whatever. Back in the day, there would be cool ads in a comic book. It'd be part of the experience.
What are you talking about?
It made sense if you rewind.
I got
and
it,
listen
but
again.
I'm just laughing. I'm laughing at you two not understanding each other. I'm enjoying this.
I'm saying the ads used to be cool. Is the short way to say it.
Yes, the X-ray specs and everything really.
Yeah.
Sea monkeys always brought.
Did you ever order
joy.
anything?
Were
of
you
the-
there? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
those sea monkeys were amazing, man. One
Yeah.
time, they came to life and jumped out of the bowl and woke me up and said, "Hey, man, when you gonna feed us?"
Yeah, they
Kept
helped.
poking me with that trident they had.
They helped you finish the inks on the tight deadline on DP7.
Yeah, you know,
number
sometimes they would
10.
dip that crowny head that they have into the
Yeah.
ink and give the special Kirby crackle for me.
I know. I was
Like
really
bopping
confused
their,
by like the drawings of sea monkeys. I figured they must look like that somehow. But what were they? Just like
Yeah, they were like the
krill?
cool, the
Shrimp
cool.
or- yeah, something
It's
like
like
that.
the
It's pretty ridiculous
the
false
Jetsons of the
advertising.
underworld, the undersea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what they do. Okay, were you there when we were at St. Mark's Comics and we actually had there was some ad where you're supposed to call some lady?
Yeah, that was Rodney.
Okay, so who was the lady
Actually,
we
we
were supposed
called
to
the
call?
number and it turned to be a porn line.
Yeah. But
It
what
was a
the-
date line, not a point.
Right,
Was
we looked at a comic of it was
said,
a book
like,
that was
call-
out in the it came out in 1980 something.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the back of it, and there's an ad with the number on it.
And it
so
says
we
call
thought,
Cheryl for immediate assistance. or
right. So
something like
it was some ad for something, and we thought, let's call the number now
Yeah.
and see what comes
See
up
what
on
happened.
it. So we call this number from the comic
See
of
if we can get Cheryl to
1985,
pick up.
and
Yeah.
it turned out like, hi, you know, do you want to speak to Cheryl? It's only $3.99 a minute. So press 1 if you want to talk to her. And we're like, oh my god, it's a porn line now.
It was a date line, but porn's a better story.
Yeah, well.
porn line.
Although
You're
not
just
back then-
elaborating
yeah.
the story more. It's so
Yeah.
much more interesting.
I like the
now.
part of the story
Although-
about how the same
Well, we
person,
can always-
Cheryl, it's their same number.
Yeah.
She just has a
She
different
changed,
profession.
the job changed, but the operator
But it's still
stayed the
Cheryl.
same. Yeah.
We can always enhance this story by saying like, yeah, and the porn operator called me back. And that's when things got real interesting. She started trying to charge me for calling
And we
me.
were like, no, I just wanted this toy in this ad, you know?
And then somebody rang my bell at 3 a.m. I thought it was
pretty-
Cheryl, the porn.
The porn lady.
She's back! Call up Amy at 3 a.m. Help me! She's got me chained up! Jesus Christ, Mother of God!
I wouldn't come to rescue you. I'd let you,
Figure it
I'd let
out.
you, figure that one out. Figure out that situation.
But you were saying before you got to be mellow when you're inking. Hands ever shake? Like when you go, hey, Dave Gibbons.
It's not that you have to
you're
be
gonna
mellow,
ink.
you just have to be...
Yeah.
You
What
have
about when
to be
it's
present.
what about when it's hey, it's Dave
Yeah.
Gibbons? What about when it's a big guy you're working over? You get nervous at all,
Oh,
or
of course you do. Yeah. I mean, Dave
no, you
Gibbons.
personally?
I remember when I inked some John Byrne of An Amazing Spider-Man. I was like my head was spinning.
Yeah.
But it was great because it was like I get to ink John Byrne. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
John
that
Byrne,
definitely probably
the
gets
second
you in
best
zone.
X-Men artist in the 80s. Or third best.
Second best? Who was first for you?
We had this discussion at Casa de Agua.
Are you talking about Neil? Neil Adams was on.
Paul Smith.
Castillo.
Oh, you thought Paul
Castillo.
Smith. I mean, look, Paul Smith's stuff, I liked it, but it was nowhere near the John Byrne.
Paul Smith, number 1. Dave Cockrum, part 2, number 2. John Byrne, maybe 3.
Cockrum reset the standard. He reset the standard for the X.
I might even like John Romita Jr. better than.
He reset the standard,
stuff.
and Byrne just took it to another level. Now, as far as the Paul Smith run, that was a completely different animal. That was a completely different time. It was a completely different look.
It was a better look.
Well, for you it was a better look. For me, it was just different. I mean, I thought his stuff was a little cartoony for the X.
So, John Byrne, do you look at? Is there pressure to draw like to ink like Terry Austin, or you just?
No, you can't do. Even Terry can't ink like that anymore.
Right.
Because from what I understood, he put a lot of pressure. It was intent for him to ink that way. He would ink I think he would use a 107 pen nib, and he would shave it down to like this edge, and he'd sit and ink every line that way. And that really took a toll on his wrist. Because of how he was handling that line, that repetition of it I think it really got to him. That's why, because when you look at stuff now of his, it's much different. It's a little bit chunkier. Style has changed in it. Because, that was the period of time when he was capable, he was younger, he was capable of sitting down, his wrist wouldn't wear out or tire on him as much. But that process of inking that way, that's a time-consuming, the level of concentration he had to be on to produce those pages.
Yeah.
To give that look.
Yeah. So Amy uses, like you said, a micron. If she wants a thicker line, she just gives it 2 strokes, usually.
No, that's fine. Look, I always say to people...
Right. But, so there's this... Ron, you have a lusher style? What would you say? I don't know. But
Well, mine is more of a cleaner style, depending on who it is. I mean, these days now, everything tends toward a grittier look. But like I said, my style varied with the person I was working on. So, but generally, I have more of a cleaner style.
Yeah.
I would gear more toward a cleaner style.
What
if
are
there was
you-
no clear definition of it.
What's better, nib or brush?
I think either one is fine.
But what do you like more?
Here's an interesting discussion about tools.
Okay. I need to get this because I need to learn a little bit myself.
The most common question asked is, what tools are you using? Why? How are you using? Blah, blah, blah. Listen, I know guys using microns too
Yeah?
that are inking books now.
That are
and
inkers?
that
wow.
get the look, but they get a specific look with those microns. They're more comfortable with them. Look, Gil Kane never used a brush. Why? Because he never could handle a brush. So he used markers. So most of Gil Kane's stuff was marker, and if you see it, he got a specific style out of it. It's what he felt most comfortable with.
Yeah.
Of course, when other people inked him, it was completely different. I mean, there was an issue, I think it was Daredevil, that Klaus Janson inked of him. That's incredibly beautiful. I mean, it's just amazing. But it was a completely different animal from the way Gil Kane would ink, because Gil Kane would basically ink with this, thick marker, and it gave it kind of a thick, chunky style to it, but it was a look, and it worked.
Yeah.
And then you have other guys that, they can only ink and brush. Joe Kubert could only ink and brush. I mean, he basically, but when you see that lush line work that he did, the fluidity that he would get, it's amazing. John Buscema only used brush. If you looked at the back of a lot of Conan pages, you'll see him working on stuff, and he's using brush. He just felt more comfortable with brush. And then you go to other guys, it's the complete opposite. You sit and you look at Ethan Van Skeever's stuff now, it's a lot of rapidograph. It's a lot of... He could be using microns on it, but I think he uses more rapidograph.
Yeah, I think he does.
And he's got these very thin lines because he's trying to get a very specific line down on his work, and it works for him, And then you look at somebody else, and who might ink themselves, and it's a completely different animal. The tools are what works for you.
Yeah.
So if microns work and you get the line you need, what difference does it make?
I mean, I don't know that I get the line I need. I think it's more that I feel secure in it and I feel like I can pull it off, but it might just take a little more work. So I'm trying to figure it out. But
Yeah, but you're making a statement about as though like, oh, I should be using more important tools or something like a brush or a quill. You don't have to use those things.
yeah.
You
No,
just
but-
have to use what's comfortable for you. You get good you
Yeah, but you don't think you have to also. I'm not saying you have to push yourself, but Amy started total 100% digital.
Yeah, I
So
didn't
no,
go
but then
art
moved
school
to
or anything
analog
like
tools
that.
and feels that your art grows because you can use
Because you
the
tried
difference.
different
Yeah, yeah.
things.
Your art grows because you're making an effort to make it grow.
Yeah.
And here's how I mean by that. What I mean by that, it doesn't matter what tools you're using as long as you get the results that you want.
But can I ask which one do you prefer though? Do you use
Well,
both
I mean,
when
me
you work?
personally, I like to sit down and start getting, get good at Photoshop and learn how to ink digitally. Only because it makes things easy for making corrections. But I do miss that whole, that would be missing the whole tactile working on a board. And
Yeah.
there's a confidence that comes with inking a page, doing it with a brush or a quill. You learn a confidence there. There's you know how you're gonna put that on. I can look at a page and know what I'm gonna do with it, how I'm gonna ink it, what I'm gonna do with it. It's just a natural instinctive thing, and that the thing about doing it on computers or using anything else, it takes the computers kind of takes you out of the thing, but it doesn't say that it's not a tool you should use. It's a tool that maybe you can use to enhance the pages too. But I think everything changes over time. So in 10 years time from now, everybody will probably be digital
Yeah.
doing so it won't matter. So
Yeah.
we'll be a bunch of old farts sitting around going, I remember when I pulled a quill out and I said I need to get some Indian ink and some kid looked at me with 3 heads. And you're like, oh, and they're like, what's Indian ink, old man? And you're like, oh, it's what we use to actually draw pages and get them in.
Did you have to ink the letters on a page when they were lettered on the boards?
No,
somebody else do
those were
that?
done by the letterer.
So
Those were done. All special effects, when lettering was done on the board, it was done by the letterer. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
a lot of that was taken care of. You kind of missed the days when pages were lettered, because then you knew exactly what parts you didn't have to worry about inking.
That's right.
Now you got to ink every part of it,
Yeah.
because you don't know where the hell the balloons are going to go.
Yeah.
And be surprised if you put in this elaborate background to be covered by a giant balloon later.
Yeah. It's surprising that Amy does that a lot, yet she's the
I
one doing
letter
the letters.
myself,
and-
but I still do it. I know. Well,
You still end up covering.
She'll draw
lines,
it,
swatches.
obviously
on
ink
the
it.
back.
She'll also color it, and then say, "Oh, there's a big balloon going."
Yeah,
over
well,
it."
I'm gonna try to do that a little less, but we have this one of our Kickstarter rewards for Rocket Girls, this insider thing, and you were gonna have it even the colors. They're gonna see that before the letters. So I was like, well, great. Now
Yeah,
I
but
guess I have to do this.
It's not supposed to be works of art. It's a process.
No, I had to do it all the way.
Well,
So that's what I did.
It's called being anal.
Yes,
Just-
that's my
It
problem.
might help to actually write the dialogue in to know where
My parents almost
much?
called me anal, but then they decided to just name me Amy. 'cause-
That's just wrong.
Somehow this has
Kicking
come,
yourself like that.
This
is
has
just
come
wrong.
full circle to Bang Tango.
Yeah, that's why.
Sorry.
Add the tango to the bang.
Oh, yeah.
Just speaking of long runs, Rodney, you just 200 pages over Simon Bisley?
274 pages of a
Jesus,
Wow,
that's 274 pages.
Dark Tower series, correct?
Tower Chronicles.
Tower Chronicles, sorry.
Tower Chronicles. Which is being re-released again.
In a couple of it'll be a couple of weeks, August 9th on or something like that.
Yeah, August 9th. There's a big, massive tune.
Well, 274 page hardcover.
Yeah, 274 pages.
Written by Wagner.
Actually, shockingly enough, when I saw them come out in the 68-page format, it was a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. It seemed a
Yeah.
lot smaller. So now I know what 274 pages is going to look like. It's not going to be that thick of a book.
They'll do a nice job.
No, I think it'll be fine, but I just think, looking at it, I go, well, people will be able to pick that up and now finally read the whole story complete from one end to the other.
Yeah,
But this was for Legendary Pictures, new comic.
Yeah,
Written by
Legendary Pictures
Wagner,
comics.
pencils by Simon Bisley.
Matt Wagner wrote it, Simon Bisley drew it, I inked it, colored by Ryan Brown.
Cool.
Now maybe this is just like a romantic fantasy in my head, but like inking Simon Bisley Seems to me like getting in a fist fight with Simon Bisley. You know what
Well,
I mean?
I've yet to run into him at a
No,
con.
I don't even mean personality. I
this
just mean
fear.
literally the board itself. There's got to be something you
Well,
got to
no,
fight.
not really. It was like I said, once I know how somebody inks themselves, I pretty much, if there's a way that they want it done, I pretty much stick to that program.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to try to elaborate on it because he wanted a very specific look that he liked anyway. Because we did try something different in the first book. Because he was penciling conventionally, so we kind of went more conventional, figuring more conventional look for the first book. But he really liked more of his other stuff, so we kind of switched up on the second to the fourth book.
Well, it
So-
always takes some time to get used to it. Now with the collected edition era, it's like you see the early issues, they were
Yeah.
finding, I mean, Amy and I had this on a podcast a few weeks ago, we were talking about Sandman, and as great as it is, the first, it doesn't do anything until around the eighth issue, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this,
And also had like 4 different artists, it always had a lot of artists, I guess, but
Yeah, this is
was even still
consistent all the
being
way through.
visually defined.
it's
Yeah.
consistent. And the colors, Ryan Brown does a good job of tying it all together. So,
Yeah.
really, it'll be fine. It'll be a nice book coming out.
Yeah, nice big hardcover.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if people want to find you online, I know you're on Facebook. Or is
Twitter
that
as well,
you're-
Twitter
right?
too?
No, I'm not on Twitter yet.
Rodney, you
I
gotta
should be
get there.
tweeting little pictures left and right.
That's
You should be.
hilarious. You were giving me Twitter advice the other day, so I could have
wasn't
sworn.
doing this.
Yes,
You
you
sure it was
were.
me?
Yeah.
You sure you didn't
you could-
fantasize this?
Because I was like, I can't ever think of what to write on Twitter, and you just kept
This-
telling
this-
me all
this
these.
pod-
No, but people are. What I was saying was because anybody that has a Twitter account that's an artist, they always tweet pictures of their art.
Oh yeah.
So you
You've
can
got,
tweet pictures of the art, which I really should be doing too, because I always do these
Yes,
little
follow
bar
your own
napkin things
advice.
at friends' bars, which are hilarious.
That's what people want to see.
I
This
mean,
podcast will be up on Wednesday. You have about 36 hours, Ron, to get
Well,
hooked up to
I
Twitter.
supposedly already have an account. I just got to reestablish it.
Well,
All
our
right.
very
Reestablish. Put some pictures on.
Our-
Yes, that's immediately put some stuff up on it.
our
We'll-
faithful engineer / producer / Guy Friday,
Chris Robinson.
Chris Robinson at Chris Robinson at Twitter will link at Chris Robinson at Twitter will link to Rodney's new Twitter
He's a
account,
tweeter,
which will be
Twitter.
up and running with things that people can already look at because it'll be the future when this broadcasts.
That's right. I'll just keep tweeting pictures.
And you'll have
so
some
people
stuff.
get sick of
Future.
it. In the future.
We're living in the future.
You
One
can
thing I
find,
didn't share is that
oh.
we're Ronnie and I are karaoke buds.
Right.
So it's surprising
Yes.
we haven't broken into more songs.
Yeah.
But
You can
Brandon's
Well, the
wrapping
opportunity
us
hasn't come up
so-
to insert certain songs into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, next
You know.
time. Next
Yeah.
time it'll be an
All music
karaoke.
episode?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We
episode.
should just start
We
like.
should do like a hidden podcast, you have to know where to find it, and it's just karaoke.
And then
Well,
we do one karaoke song for it. We got to pick the
Before
song.
this podcast started, we learned that Amy and Rodney both have keyboards that are floppy disk drive.
Yeah.
Well, I have an old keyboard from my ex, so it's a floppy drive, but it's been
Get it
sitting
out.
there, and it needs a home because I
No.
can't
Dust it
keep
off,
looking-
and you can have dueling keyboard.
Yeah, but I don't know how to play the
singing.
I mean, mine's will be like more like the Frankenstein, dang, dang, dang.
Well, I guess Amy's gonna win, which makes Amy happy.
If I broke
like
out
winning.
into like a Beethoven, like ding, 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 that would blow people away. Ding, ding. Well, that's more Charlie Brown.
It'd be like
yeah,
that
I'm
movie.
like, is that Beethoven?
I can whistle Beethoven. That's a lot easier.
You whistle, Amy will play the keyboard, and everyone else will follow along at home. Where do they
Yes.
find you, Amy, on the internet?
Oh, well, at AmyReeder on Twitter, and Tumblr's AmyReeder.tumblr.com.
Yeah, I'm at BMontclare. BrandonMontclair.com will take in my Tumblr.
Yeah.
Rodney's
so,
got to get on the ball.
I got a tumble. I got a tumble.
Karaoke starting early, a little preview.
Yeah, we're just getting ready.
I got a
All right.
tumble.